so that you guys have it for all of your needs to reference back. We'll send links to things. And then, yeah, so I'll let Lauren just take it from here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Brooke, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you all for making the time to be here. Let me just put something out there. Traveling is not easy. It's never going to be easy. I read an article once that said, I'm not going on a vacation, I'm going on a trip. Vacation with 2, 3, one small child, I don't know. I've never seen a vacation like that. So it's a trip, it's not a vacation. Just keep that in mind. I'm gonna go through all of my slides pretty fast. I'm gonna be throwing a lot of resources at you. I wanna just make sure that I can get as much information out to you as possible. Feel free to put any questions in the chat, and when we're done, I'd be happy to stay on longer and answer any questions that you have, any specific questions. So real quick, I moved from DC to Oakland, California, when my youngest one, Santiago, was 2 months old. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And then I also now have another child. So my kids currently are 6 and 3. They just turned 6 and 3, Santiago and Ezra. We fly a lot because my family is back on the East Coast and my partner's family is in the Midwest. So when we fly, it's a cross-country flight usually, which is 6 hours. I saw some of you are doing international flights, flying 10 plus hours, and we'll definitely talk about that today. So this is what I'm going to go through today. How do you prepare for your trip? Tips for getting to and from the airport, what happens at the airport. I'm curious to know if any of you, if this is going to be your first flight ever, you can put that in the chat. What happens when you're on the plane, tips for while you're away, tips for coming home, and then I'm going to end it with COVID specific advice just because this is a unique time. We're still in a pandemic, and traveling certainly looks different now than it did before. So excuse me as I go back and forth from 2 screens here. So first I'm going to talk about purchasing your flight. There's always this question of, should I take when should we leave? Should we leave in the morning? Should we do a red eye? And I always say, will your kids sleep on a plane? My kids absolutely will not sleep on a plane. Never, ever, ever. So I'm never, ever, ever going to buy a red eye flight. However, if you think that you can plop your kid in a seat and they will sleep the whole way, then by all means do the red eye. But for me, that just seems like a horrible idea. I also would advise never to buy the first flight of the day or the very last flight of the day. Those are the flights that often have the most delays and problems. Just one little tip there. Should you fly direct or a layover? With kids, I prefer to fly direct. The less transitions, the better. The less boarding and getting off the plane, the better. However, if you have a really energetic kid that is can't last more than 30 minutes sitting in one place, and if you think you need to have a layover to give your kid space to run and climb and do what they need to do, then by all means. Also, direct flights are more expensive, so it's also a financial decision. But I think for ease, I personally always book direct if I can. As far as which seats to purchase, so it depends how many of you are flying, right? Let's say you are a family of 3, okay? 2 parents and 1 child. Then that's sort of easy. You just get a row of 3. Let's say you are a family of 4. Well, you can make a decision. You could do 2 and 2. So 1 parent, 1 child, 1 parent, 1 child, or you could do 3 and 1. That leaves 1 parent with 2 children. I would never want to be left with 2 children alone on a flight in a row, but maybe some of you are braver than me. So I like the 2 and 2 option. And then what about your aisle or your window, right? When you're thinking about that. I really like having an aisle seat for myself or my partner. We are constantly getting up to go to the bathroom. If you have a little baby, you might be doing a lot of walking up and down the aisles, and just having that easy access to the aisle is going to be key. You don't want to be stepping over someone 20 times on a flight. So I would say if you can get an aisle, do it. And I would say don't put your child in the aisle though, because those carts come through and they will whack your child, and your child is not going to like move their hands in when they need to. I've seen that happen many times. So I will put your child in the middle and you on the outside, so you can easily get in and out. I would say that there's always this question of what, breastfeeding or pumping on a plane. If you want to share in the chat, if you're going to be breastfeeding or pumping on a plane, please feel free. I've done that many times. So in that case, I always like having the whole row if I can, just to allow myself a little bit more privacy. So in that case, I might actually book, a 3-in-1 so that I get the whole row. So I have that privacy. I recommend that for pumping, I have always used a handheld pump, one that you don't have to, a manual pump, one that you don't have to plug in. It doesn't make as much noise and it's just a lot easier. And just remember that if you do have a cooler bag for your milk, you can always ask for ice if you feel like you need to keep it cooler. Don't hesitate to ask the flight attendants for anything that you need. I would not advise on pumping in the restroom. That just is stressful, and you're going to have people knocking on the door. And I just can't imagine being able to relax, knowing that people are going to be trying to get in there. So that we'll talk more about milk later on.
Someone asked, can we bring non-dairy milk on the plane?
Can you bring? Yes, you can. You can bring any milk to the airport from home. Just know, we're going to talk about this, but it will just need to be tested when you go through security. But you can bring any milk you want from home. You do not have to throw that out, just like you have to throw out your liquids and things like that. You don't have to throw out milk.
Just one thing too, you want to make sure when they test it that they actually close it properly after they test it, because I had once where they tested it and then they didn't close it properly and it got everywhere. So just make sure.
Yes, thank you. What about buying a seat if your child is under 2, right? Because under 2 is free. People think about this differently. And there's no right or wrong way. But for me, I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to get free flights until I can. So I was never going to pay for my child at that time. However, if you can afford it, and if you think that if you're going to bring a car seat on the plane, for example, and you put that in the seat, and you think that's the best place for your child to sleep, let's say you're doing one of these 20+ hour flights, that really could save you from hell. So if you can afford it, and if you think your child will sleep in the car seat, in a seat, then I would say by all means, purchase that seat. But if not, if you're going to have a lap child, just be aware that they are going to be on top of you. And that's why I highly recommend carrying your baby in a baby carrier from the very beginning. And I'll talk about that later too. What about traveling first class? Some people say, should I do it? Will it make things easier? Again, no right or wrong way. First class, you certainly have more room and you get on first and things like that. But for me, my kids are like little tiny terrors, especially when they're on a plane. I don't want to be surrounded by people who are going to be extra pissed at me. And I just have this feeling like if I'm in first class, those people are going to be more pissed at me than people in the coach. That's just how I feel. So I prefer to be in solidarity with the other families. And whenever I get on the plane, I head right to the back and I look for the other kids and I say, I want to be near you because you're going to understand when my kid is crying and you're going to be sympathetic. And if I need an extra diaper, you might have one. So personally, I like to be with my people and the kids in the back. I just feel like I'll feel more self-conscious with my kids in the front, but whatever you need to do for you.
We have another question about formula. Can you bring your own water to mix with the powdered formula, or do you need to just bring the formula and then ask for water?
I would say bring it and explain what it's for. And I often find that they don't mess with you when you are talking about food for your child, or they shouldn't. So I always say, go for it. Tell them it's for feeding your baby, no matter what it is, and give it a go. I feel like they'll let it through, but I can't be sure. Sometimes it depends literally on the person that you're talking to. It's just a matter of who you get to talk to.
And what about food pouches? Like any of,
Yes.
you can bring yogurt pouches, food pouches, all of those.
Yep. Just explain it's food for your baby, food for your baby. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to pack in your checked baggage versus what to pack on the plane. So one of the things that I have done that has saved me is I've borrowed as much baby crap as I can from people in my destination. So I don't have to pack it at all. I will just email my friends or family wherever I'm going and say, do you have this? Can you ask your friends if they have this? And I try to gather as much as I can in the destination so I don't have to bring it. Another option is to look at like a buy nothing Facebook group in the destination where you're going and see if there's anything that you can just ask someone to pick up for you for free while you're on your trip. There's also baby rental equipment companies. Two of them that are good are Baby Quip and Baby Loop. Maybe Brooke, you could put that in the chat. Baby Quip and Baby Loop. So you could also rent equipment. I just like to travel as light as possible, and because the more stuff you have, it just weighs you down, and you already have to worry about just like getting to the gate with your kids. As even diapers, I've had diapers delivered to my final destination. They take up so much room in your bags. Just have them delivered to your final destination. The one thing that I would say to pack and check in your check bag that is crucial is anything that helps your baby sleep, because we all know that having your baby sleep is the most important thing. It is key to the success of every day. So if it's a sleep sack, if it's a white noise machine, if it's a special pillow, a stuffy, whatever it is that you know your baby needs to get a good night's sleep, pack it. Also for white noise machines, there are apps. There's an app called Sound Sleeper, for example. So you don't have to pack one. You can just put it on your phone. Even a baby monitor, there are baby monitor apps, just something less to pack. It's called Baby Monitor 3G, just trying to lighten your load. Other things to think about bringing, I'm just gonna name them: inflatable bathtub, doesn't take up a lot of space; baby Tylenol, because when you arrive at your final destination, if you need it, you don't want to have to run out. So bring some baby Tylenol. Nose Frida, I know that for me was like a key thing I needed at all times. A folding potty seat if you need it. And just remember, you don't need to overpack. You can always do laundry. And then finally, I just want to say laundry detergent, because sometimes when you're going somewhere, if it's like a hotel or an Airbnb, they give you laundry detergent. I've had this happen. That's why I say this. It's like very harsh. And then if you have like just like a specific kind of laundry detergent that you use for your clothes, I recommend bringing a little bottle, just so you don't have to deal with unnecessary rashes and irritations that will ruin your trip. Okay, I'm going to switch to what to pack on your carry-on. So extra sets of clothes for your kids and for yourself. I know you don't think about yourselves that much when you're packing, but you've got to, because they are going to puke on you. It happens, and you're going to want an extra set of clothes. So extra. Fold up changing pad if you're changing diapers. And then for those of you who haven't flown before with your kids, when you go to the restroom on the plane, there's a fold down changing table. It's right above the toilet. Before kids, I never even noticed it. Pull it down. That's where you can change your kids. Bring lots of wipes, lots of snacks. Individually wrapped snacks. Again, this is for more toddlers, but like things in containers, clementine, string cheese, things that are individually wrapped. And then something that I suggest is wrapping your snacks in tin foil or like wrapping paper, because it's an extra something for your kids to do if they're not babies and they're toddlers, and they can do that. It's like an extra activity. They unwrap their snacks. It can actually kill some time. And another thing I would recommend is to pack your lunch for the plane. They don't serve those meals anymore like they used to. So I would not rely on getting plane food for a meal. Bring what you need. And just some tips on toys for the plane. I would just go to the dollar store and again, wrap all these little individual toys. New, exciting toys for your kids will keep them busy for a little while. If anyone knows about Water Wows, that's from Melissa and Doug. They keep kids occupied for a long time. Window clings, Play-Doh. Those are all successful. Stickers, you have to be careful because they could stick them on the window and then they won't come off. Kid size headphones. If you're going to go the iPad route, depends on how old your kid is, how comfortable you are with that. For me, I have no screen time rules when it comes to planes. And if my kids are capable of watching a screen for the flight, I'm going to do that. You'll see in this picture, the little girl with the fox on her head. That's a cool headphone called Cozy Phones. So they're really good for little kids because they don't hurt, just like a little headband, and there's little speakers in there and it's soft. It limits the volume as well. Okay. And then finally, I say your patience tool. Like there's going to be moments when it totally sucks. So just bring your patience tool. There is an end to the flight. Like it's going to be over. And sometimes you just got to get through it. Okay. I'm trying to go fast. I feel like I'm already going. There's not enough time. Bringing your car seat on the plane. Should you do it or should you not? So if you think your kid will sleep in a car seat and you're willing to lug it on the plane, remember they're heavy, then do it. But if you don't think it matters for sleep, I would say that the easiest option is to just, if you're going to bring a car seat, is to just check it in. I'm going to talk about how to carry your car seat in a second. And also, if you are going to bring a car seat, I'm going to recommend a specific car seat that's extra light and narrow for traveling. So here we go. These are some specific travel gear recommendations I have. One is a fold-up umbrella stroller. You know, those really cheap kinds that at least I used to have when I was a child that my mom used to push me in. The cheaper, the better. So you don't have to worry about it getting destroyed. The cheaper and the lighter, the better. I still use the umbrella stroller in the airport for my 3-year-old, and I could not get him through the airport without it.
And that's for when they're probably, I don't think they can sit in one of those strollers until they're probably 6 or 7 months. Like they have to be able to sit up. Right. For those with just really little ones, you probably are going to need your baby stroller. And those, you can have the car seat in or not, but just know when they do hit 6 months and can sit up, that's when they can be in those foldable ones. And there are foldable ones, I know you're going to talk about this, that you can actually bring on the plane. I can send a link because that's like my favorite thing that I got.
Yeah. And if you do have a child that's small enough to be in a baby carrier, that is my biggest recommendation, is to wear your baby through the airport, on the plane. It's so much less work getting them in and out. When you go through security, you don't even have to take them off of you. It just frees you up in a major way. So I would say definitely wear your baby if you can. If they're a little bit bigger, put them on the back, on the ergo, whatever. But wearing your baby, highly, highly recommend. Okay, so back to travel gear. The travel crib that I like the best, which is in this picture, is the Guava Lotus. I like it because it's pretty light, and it's great quality, and it folds up into that. You can see it's kind of like a backpack, so you can even wear it like a backpack. So that's my go-to for travel, like pack and plays. And then the car seat that I was going to recommend is called a Costco. It's the Costco Sonera Next convertible car seat. It's the one that gets the best reviews for travel, and it's one of the lightest. And then if you are bringing in the car seat, what we do is we get a car seat bag. There's lots of different brands. Just look up car seat bag, travel bag, and you actually put the car seat in it, and then it's also a backpack. So you can walk through with your backpack and you can check it, right? And there's no fee to check your car seat. And then another just recommendation for travel gear is a travel high chair. The Inglesina is the one that I like the best, but just a recommendation for a travel high chair. Okay. I know that we're kind of at time, which is crazy. So if you have to hop off, no worries. And Brooke is recording this, so she'll send it out later. So no worries if you have to hop off because it's almost 11:30.
Real quick on car seats, have you had experience about it getting, like when you check it getting like ruined or damaged? I've only carried mine on, so I've never experienced that, but wasn't sure if you've heard anything because it's not covered by insurance or anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I like the car seat bag. But honestly, yeah, I mean, you hear stories about that all the time. And that's why I recommend buying like don't bring like your favorite go-to car seat, like just buy a kind of a cheapo one that you use just for travel. So that you won't be upset if it gets ruined. I mean, that's how I feel about the umbrella stroller too. It's like $20. So if it's ruined, I don't really care. Don't bring your favorite stuff.
Yeah, and like that's where you're saying hand-me-downs or buy nothing, like get a free one that you know you can just like bang up or something like that if it's going to travel versus using your good one.
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about getting to and from the airport. So let me go here. The most challenging option, I would say, is driving and then parking and then going in. So using the park and ride. One, it's expensive. It's expensive because you have to pay for the parking. But two, it's just such an extra step having to park your car, take the shuttle, get to the airport. It's a pain in the butt with kids, even without kids, right? So what I have done, this has worked. It's amazing. I ask my neighbors to drive my family in my car to the airport. So we have our car seats in there already. They drive me, and then they drive my car home and park it right next to their house in my driveway. You must be thinking, wow, those are nice neighbors. Yeah, they are, but I do nice things for them. I let them use my house. I let them use my car. I buy them presents when we come back, and it's all worth it. So, if you have that kind of relationship, do it. Say, I'll do it for you. It will make your life so much easier. So I highly recommend that option. There are Ubers, depending on what city you live in. There is something called Uber car seat. It's that sign that you see in the image. Some cities have it. I don't believe the Bay Area does, but it's called Uber car seat, where it actually comes with car seats. That's another option. There are car services that come with car seats, very expensive, but it is an option, and it takes away the stress, especially if you're not bringing your car seats, then you just know that you will have them for when you need to get to the airport. And then one thing I really do not advise is renting a car. Like, let's say when you get to your final destination, renting a car and renting car seats. I'll tell you why. One, it's expensive. You're paying per day for the car seats. And two, the car seats are crap. They're just really bad quality. And when you get to the airport, you're gonna be tired and you're gonna have to figure out how to install. They don't install it for you, by the way. That is something I learned. You have to install it yourself. Can you imagine how tired you are? And then you have to install a car seat that you've never installed before? Hell. So I just highly do not recommend that. For us, when we arrive at our destination, we have a family member or a friend pick us up. Either the car seats will be in there or we've brought our own and we'll install them. If I am going to rent a car, especially if I'm flying to like a big airport, I usually wait until I get to my final destination and rent the car from like a smaller rental car company closer to my destination, not at the airport. And the reason I say that is just because it's a hassle and you're going to be so tired and exhausted. And it's another thing to do when you arrive, unless you're arriving at like one of these small, tiny airports where it's easy. That's just another piece of advice. Okay, gonna move on. Okay, when you're actually at the airport, like I mentioned this before, wearing your baby. We've already talked about that, how I highly recommend that. Do you need IDs? Do you need passports? So if you're flying in the US, you do not need an ID for your child. If you're flying international, you do. You need a passport. If you have a child who is 2 and under, do you need proof that they are 2 and under, right? Because they're a lap child, and they don't need a seat. I have never been asked for proof. Some people have. So what I would recommend is just taking a picture of your baby's birth certificate, having it on your phone. So in case anybody asks you, you can just show them the picture. It's never happened to me. Put in the
I've been
chat.
asked for their birth certificates before.
You have, okay.
Yeah, so definitely have your birth certificate picture, or I bring it with me when I travel.
Okay. Put in the chat if you've ever lied about the age of your child to get a free seat. Okay, going through security. Your kids do not need to take off their shoes, which is awesome. You can, if you do not want your children to walk through that scanner machine, you can opt out of that, and they can do that little wand thing if that's something that you feel more comfortable with. So just know that you can opt out of that. And then I've talked about the milk before, taking milk through. You certainly can do it, but just know that it's going to take some time because they have to test it. And sometimes, depending on who's in charge and who's working that day, just build in some time for the testing of the milk, because some people are like, have no idea what they're doing. At the airport also, there are some airports that actually have play zones for kids that are awesome. And it's a great way to get your kids' energy out before they're getting on the plane. Other ways to entertain your kids in the airport, just watching the planes from the windows, it's super fun, watching them load the bags. I don't know, my kids get a kick out of that. And then in this picture, you'll see that's actually a pumping station. It says Hello Mamas in the picture. They have a lot of these at a lot of airports, or they'll have nursing rooms. And I found them to be actually very nice and very clean. And very private. So I feel like all airports these days have them. If they don't, then I don't know. That's a place I don't want to be anyway. But yeah, definitely take advantage of those if you need them. Okay, on the plane. And I really apologize to the one person who's driving, because I know this is really focused on flying, but if you have any questions about driving, I'm happy to answer those as well. Okay, ear popping. Oh yes, I remember the stress of this. You're supposed to breastfeed during landing, breastfeed during takeoff. When do you start? It's so stressful. The biggest thing I learned is do not start breastfeeding until the plane takes off, because we're on the runway, now's the time. And you start breastfeeding, and then it's like 45 minutes later, the plane is in the air and the baby's done and you've got no more milk. You know that sometimes you can be stuck on that runway for who knows how long, or there's a delay. I really advise you to wait to start breastfeeding until that plane's wheels are off the ground, then put them on. Other ways to help with the ear popping are using a pacifier or having them suck on a lollipop or drink some water. My kid now, my youngest one is 3 and he doesn't experience any pain. So it's really more, I think it's more for maybe like until they're 2. I don't really know, but they don't deal with that anymore. Okay, I've already talked about pumping. I've already talked about changing diapers. And the other really quick, I say walking up and down. I mean, how many of us have walked up and down trying to get our kids to sleep? That's another reason to really bring a carrier, because it's just easier to carry your baby up and down in the carrier. It's also a way to kind of entertain your kids. The flight attendants can be sort of sweet sometimes and interact with your child, and gives you a little bit of a break for a second.
Also have your partner do it too. I think I tried to be a martyr just as a mom. I was like, I'm going to just carry, I'll let my husband rest, so he can enjoy and be rested. No, make sure you guys take turns, like do loops, you're stretching your legs as needed. Because some of us have taken long flights, like, you want to have it as enjoyable as possible. Share that. So.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So while you're away dealing with jet lag, if that's something that you're going to be dealing with, just some tips. Try to keep your kid up as late as you can. I try I'm like, okay, I just need to keep them up till 6:30 and then I'll feel comfortable putting them down. One tip is to have them in the late afternoon be outside and get some sun. That actually does help with having their bodies be able to go to sleep later. So definitely making sure you're getting some sun that day that you arrive. And then if they wake up at 3 a.m, we've all been there. I just try to set rules. You can play in your room quietly until 5. Give them, you have to be here playing quietly until 5. Again, I'm talking more about toddlers. I know infants is a whole other thing.
Yeah, babies don't really follow rules. They're gonna get up when they want, how they want, as much as you try and plan sometimes with babies, especially if they're not really in a routine yet, if they're really young, like some folks are saying.
Exactly, which brings me back to the first thing I shared, which is it's a trip, not a vacation. Your daily schedule, do not overschedule your days. What happens when you go, there's so many unexpected things that will come your way. Your kid might not be able to sleep, and your entire first day might just be, you're going to be so exhausted. Just set realistic expectations. Don't overschedule. Make sure you're leaving room for naps and being flexible with your nap time. If your nap time is always 12 o'clock, wherever you live currently, be a little flexible that it might not be the same exact thing when you're abroad or wherever you're going. And then as far as where to stay, so there's different options, right? You could stay with family. There's a pros and cons, depending on who your family is and how helpful they are. Some people's families are extremely helpful. They even babysit, and oh my goodness, they make food for you, and wow. That's awesome. And by all means, take advantage. If they don't do that, and if staying with your family is going to cause you more stress, if they're going to judge you about every parenting move you're making, if they are going to not respect that your kid needs to sleep during this time, whatever it is, just don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it. As someone who's experienced it too, this is my biggest tip. If they're not helpful, don't stay there, and have people come to you too. I'm not sure if you're going to get to that, Lauren, versus trying to go and see everyone. That's the other hard thing.
True. Yeah, absolutely. You flew there. You're the one who flew. You did that hard part. They can come to you. With an Airbnb, that's kind of my go-to when I travel. I like it because it's my own space. I have a kitchen, which is key. I can make sure there's a bathtub, which I need. And make sure that there's 2 separate rooms or 3 separate rooms or whatever. So I always prefer the Airbnb, and you can click on Airbnb on the website for kid friendly. And there are a lot of Airbnbs that come with pack and plays, high chairs, toys. That's awesome. Be staying in an Airbnb that is there's a kid's room with toys is gold. So I really do like staying at Airbnbs. One thing that I've done is wherever I'm going, if I know people there, I've asked them, whether I'm staying with family or I'm staying at an Airbnb, I've asked them to stock the fridge with what I need. So I'll literally send them a shopping list and say, can you make sure that you have this, this, this? Because, you know, when you arrive, you don't want to be running to the store for milk or whatever it is that you need. And I've asked Airbnbs, can my dad come early to stock the fridge? And they're usually very kind and flexible. So I highly recommend that. And then if you're going to do the hotel route, I would just try to get a hotel room. There are like suites where you do have a kitchen, a little kitchen, which is really helpful. Or even like a hotel that has a suite, two rooms, so that if you do want your child to be sleeping in a separate room, that you can make that happen. And then I've been really picky lately about getting a hotel with a pool. And that is because it's just a built-in activity and it's something easy that I don't have to travel for. And yeah, so that's just something that I've enjoyed recently. Okay. What happens when you come home? So do as much laundry as you can while the day before you leave, so that you're flying home with as much clean clothes as possible, trying to make not as much work for you when you get home. When you get back, don't stress about unpacking everything. You're not going to be able to do it all the first day. Just wash the items that you know that you absolutely need. Don't stress. Seriously, unpacking from a trip, I give myself like a week and a half. I've gotten in the habit of arriving back home two days before the next thing happens. Just because my kids need time to adjust. We all need time to adjust. I recently got back from a trip late on Sunday night, and then my kids went to school the next day. It was so hard. So next time I'm going to come back on Saturday. I'm not coming back on Sunday. Think about giving yourself a grace period, because transitions take time. And then again, this stocking the fridge thing, especially if you're coming back like late on a Sunday night, ask people to go shopping for you back at your home and stock your fridge. I somehow live in this like magical neighborhood where my neighbors will do that for me, but it's because I will do that for them. So it makes a world of difference after you get home from your flight. Oh my God, can you imagine having to run to the grocery store? How horrible does that sound?
Or have Instacart do it too, right?
Very good.
If you're like coming back at like 3:00 on a Friday or something, and you know you're not getting anything that's going to go bad or it's cold out, you can have your Instacart do it. Order just ready. So just try and think of technologies you could have in mind, or have it sent to, someone's house so they can put in the refrigerator and you just grab it, whatever. Sure. Leverage technology.
Good one.
Thanks. Really quick, can we talk
Yep.
about driving? We do have a quick question about driving before we talk about COVID. So people are asking about the best times to drive with little ones, just taking direct routes, thinking about any stops along the way. Are there any tips around that?
Yes.
A lot of people like Bay Area might drive to LA or.
Yes. Okay. So like some people like to drive at night because they know their kids are going to sleep all night. I get that, because what better way to drive than having your kids sleep the whole way, but you're not sleeping. So then you arrive and you're exhausted and your kids are like, let's go play. So I don't know how I feel about that. So I like to build it around when I think they're going to sleep, like a nap time type of thing. So I might and you have to think about traffic, right? Like when the best time is to leave with traffic. But I wake up, we do something active here, get a lot of energy out, and then get them in the car around a time where I think soon enough they might fall asleep. But like I said, I just want to be clear that you can't plan when your kid is going to fall asleep. It's just, this is what travel is about. I mean, we do it because we love it. But things are not going to go as you always plan. They're not always going to fall asleep at 2:00. It's just not going to happen. for driving, rest stops are key. So I would certainly research ahead of time what the best rest stops are. I do this for you in my travel bucket service. Just FYI, wherever you're going, I will customize and tell you exactly where you should stop, if there's a playground or whatever it is. But you should plan to obviously have some rest stops, especially if you've got like kids that are potty training or, not using diapers. They're gonna need to pee. And then depending on how old your kids are, as far as entertainment goes, I mean, yes, there's obviously the iPad for a certain age that can handle that. But if not, remember that what I was telling you about the wrapping on the plane, the wrapping of the toys and stuff, that's really good for the car too. And
I would say too, one thing is, I don't know for anyone with babies, but when I drove from San Francisco to LA, is I just sat in the back with the kid. So as weird as it felt, where like my husband was my chauffeur, just being in the back with them as they, or would cry, fuss, if they had blowouts, having to pull over, look for the rest stops like you were saying. Just starting off in the back was my biggest lesson, because I tried to be cool in the front and ended up like half hour and going to the back.
yeah, and then as far as breastfeeding in the car, so you have to stop, right, to breastfeed, because your kid needs to be in a car seat if you're driving. I mean, technically, so you will have to stop to breastfeed. A friend of mine literally told me one time she leaned over her kid's car seat and put her boob in his mouth while they were driving. So there are other ways. But yeah, you'll also have to factor in stopping for that. But for the pumping, if you're pumping in the car, again, I've always done it with a handheld manual pump, which has worked best for me. But if anyone has suggestions for pumping in the car, please put those in the chat and share, because there might be some new things that I don't know about. Okay. Ready to go to COVID?
Yep.
Okay. So a lot of us are traveling for Thanksgiving or the upcoming holidays. Some people, comfort with COVID is different for different people, right? For whatever reasons they have. And I felt particularly comfortable. I've traveled a lot during the pandemic, but I've always been going to places that have a good masking and high vaccination rates. So I just advise you to think about where you're going and what the vaccination rates are like and what the protocols are for restaurants, like are they checking people's vaccinations, et cetera. I would definitely say to make sure you take a picture of your vaccination cards and have them ready, because a lot of places now are asking for proof of vaccination. Even if I have a kid who has gotten one shot, so I took a picture of that. I'll have that in my phone. I would say it's important to know what your kids' daycares and preschool's rules are around travel. Some are stricter than others, but my kid's school, for example, has a 7-day quarantine requirement if you're going to travel for unvaccinated kids, right? So all of our kids that are under 5 are unvaccinated. Wherever you go, you have to keep them out of school for 7 days, which is an extreme hardship for families. So think about that and think about how that might affect your decision and when you return, and all of your plans. So make sure you know what your school's rules are regarding that, and also regarding testing. Some schools are requiring that your students after Thanksgiving or a holiday get tested before they come back. And as far as COVID testing goes, during the holiday time, many more people are going to be getting tested. So I highly advise you to make appointments. That's my child in the picture. He got tested yesterday. Make your COVID test appointments as soon as possible, because I do think that they're going to fill up, or get some of those at-home COVID test kits. So you have them available, because it might be required for you to send your kid back to school. Or you may just want to get your kid tested before you bring them to see your mom or your dad, or, as far as masks go, Something that a lot of people have said to me is, I don't think my kid is going to wear a mask on the plane. I'm so nervous about that, especially the little ones. First of all, for 2 and under, they don't really recommend that the kids wear masks anyway. But just bring a lot of masks. Know that they're going to get messy and gross. So make sure you bring a lot with you. And once you're on the plane, no one is walking around checking to make sure you're wearing, like your kids are wearing your masks. So it can be like a point of stress, right? Like, they're going to keep it on. One thing that really reduced my stress level on planes was knowing, I read this article that like the way that the air is circulated in a plane is actually really good for not spreading COVID. It's actually one of like the safer places to be. So I feel like the airport is really the more important place for your kid to have their mask on rather than the actually on the plane because of the way that their circulation works. Okay, I think, oh, sorry, I went like way over, but most of you are still here, so that's good. Real quick before I hand it over to Brooke and before we take questions, I'm happy to stay on and take questions. I don't have another meeting for a while, so I can do that. But real quick, I just started this business called Hello Travel Bucket, where I basically build customized travel itineraries for you wherever you want to go. So if you say, my kids, we're going to the beach, we need recommendations for food, places to eat, kid-friendly places to eat, kid-friendly activities, and kid-friendly accommodations, I basically give you a bucket list of options and you pick and choose from that list wherever you want to go. It's not like a tour, like a travel agent where you go like 8 o'clock, you do this, 9 o'clock, you do that. I'm just giving, it's like your customized Lonely Planet. If you ever use those Lonely Planet books. So I'm currently working on one for Brooke. She's going to Memphis and Nashville. So she doesn't have to spend hours upon hours doing all the research and I get to do it for her and I like it. So that's a little plug for me. So lovely to chat with you all. And I'll pass it over to Brooke.
Yeah, no, just thank you, Lauren. Yeah, I'm so happy we had good questions. You know, whatever, if anyone has anything else, we love Q&A. Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing all this wealth of knowledge. I wish I had this before my first flight 3 years ago. As you know, our goal is 2 moms. We just want to make it as easy as possible. Looks like we have one question. So Veronica's in the process of weaning her son. There's lots of frozen milk. Can you bring the frozen milk on the plane, and how to store it and how much can you bring knowing it's frozen?
Yeah. So I know that some people that have like a ton of milk, there are companies that will ship your milk for you. So that is one option to look into. I do not know if there is a limit for how much you can bring with you on the plane. I actually don't know that. If anybody else does, please chime in. But yeah, I mean, you have to think about the time of your travel and if it's going to stay frozen. I mean, you can always like ask for ice, but your ice packs, how long are they going to stay cold? It just depends on the length of your trip.
Yeah, there's Milk Stork. I just sent the link in for you, Veronica. They do shipping of milk. I bet if you reach out to them, they can help you, with the process and have a lot of information. And also, Veronica, we can reach out to you afterwards and do some digging and follow up. So feel free to DM me your email and Lauren and I will email you.
I've definitely gone on trips where I've pumped so much milk and then it's so sad. And then I just throw it away because I'm not going to bring it home with me. And it does feel really, really sad and really hard to all that work. But one thing to think about is like, let's say you're pumping at a place where you visit often. I mean, you could just leave it frozen at that place. And then if you know you're going to be back there in like 3 months, you'll have milk waiting for you when you get there. And yes, donate. I love that suggestion. There's so many good Facebook groups about where to donate milk as well. Okay, can we look at the question? If you don't buy a seat, Are you guaranteed to not have a seat on the plane for your kid, or might they give you a seat if there are some empty seats on the flight? Right. Good question. So lately, flights have been completely booked. So I definitely would not rely on empty seats. That used to be a thing in like the beginning of the pandemic, right? Because no one was flying. So it was awesome. You got so much room and extra seats. Not anymore. Flights are completely packed. So definitely not count on having extra seats. But one thing I can tell you is that you will always be able to sit next to your child. Like if there's ever a situation where you get there and they're like, oh, the seats are not next to each other, they're never going to have a child sit by themselves without their parent. So they'll make it work. I don't know. Did that answer your question? You can feel free to turn off your mics and say something if you want, but
yeah, it looks like you answered it. I know last time I banked on having a free seat for Jace, as you were talking about lying for your kid's age. And I was like, oh yeah, he's totally 2, even though he's like 3 and 1,000 pounds. And someone else got to have this like empty seat. And I was like, why couldn't I have that for my child? Like their bag got it, or for their dog, they put their dog on it. So I wouldn't bank on the seats like I did, as you'll just end up frustrated with a squirmy kid on your lap. So definitely.
any other, I'm looking in the chat to see if I missed any questions.
No. Anyone else have questions? We'll give it 2 more minutes. Let everyone go. Thank you for staying the whole hour. We were banking on this being a half hour. So we know everyone's busy. We just, we're 2 moms that just want to see others thrive. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you, Emily, for joining us. Then we can let everyone go.
Thank you, everyone.
Weekend, everyone.
Thanks so much.